So good evening. I hope everybody's doing great. We have to say also a special hello to everyone in the universe over there, the virtual universe of YouTube, right?
Yes, we are now live on the SMPTE YouTube channel.
And don't be scared, guys. You could come on in. There's a lot of room here. We're close. It's a party. You can chill. We're friends now. Follow Rick.
Follow Rick.
And then we'll... We don't bite. Only on Saturday, so it's okay.
So, welcome everyone. We are the MCs for the evening. Please welcome José.
Well, thank you, Jérôme. So, hi everybody. Welcome to TFO. And I'm José. I'm one of the talents of Mini TFO, which is the kids' TV show here at TFO. And I'll do my best to entertain you during the speeches. You know, I could juggle maybe, or like I could say jokes, or like maybe I could dance.
Thank you, José.
Okay, sure.
I'm Jérôme, one of the best directors here on TFO. I can show you some of my work.
No. How about instead of showing your what we do, you know, we could maybe invite the chair of the SMPTE of Toronto section.
Warm welcome to Tony Meriker.
Here we go.
No jokes or no acts from me. I also want to include that at the end of that camera is, I think Montreal is, the SMPTE chapter in Montreal is also online. So we now are going to have 35 people looking at us. Oh, we're trending. Yeah, just do the Twitter thing. Yeah, I want to reach out and say thanks to all of the sponsors. You'll see them listed on the monitor and on some of the printed material around. They help the food that we got tonight, which was really, really good. When we go back to, yes, please. Back to our regular SMPTE pizza night is going to be a bit of a stretch, so I'm glad we can do this every once in a while for all our members. Also, a big hand for the TFO group and putting this on, and you're going to definitely be impressed with what you're going to see tonight and hear tonight. So on that note, I'm going to hand it back to the MCs, and thanks for coming, and please, TFO.
Thank you, Mr. Meriker, for this introduction. José, do you know who is coming next?
Do I know who's coming next? I mean, I know he's very tall. He plays, you know, some mean guitars. It's like...
Oh, I get you.
Yeah.
He's also president of Group Media TFO?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So please welcome Glenn O'Farrell.
Good evening, bonsoir. Ça nous fait bien plaisir de vous accueillir ici à nos bureaux de TFO à Toronto. We're really pleased that you would join us here. We know that you're a very important, very, very, very smart group of people. It took a little bit of water, yeah. I don't know if that's hesitation or self-examination or... No, truly, we're very pleased to have you here. I just want to tell you a few things about TFO because you're probably wondering, what the hell are we doing here? Well, TFO is an educational public media company that produces, acquires, and distributes educational content in French across Ontario. And because of digital and the digital turnaround that we have undertaken here some 4 or 5 years ago, we now have truly become a player across Francophone markets in Canada, but indeed the world. And it's one of those things that 5 years ago, TFO was effectively dropping like a stone in terms of its relevance to its audience. And digital gave us a chance to reinvent ourselves and repurpose ourselves, not only for our core audience in Ontario, Francophones and Francophiles, people trying to learn French, but for French language learning audiences anywhere in the country and anywhere across the world. We're really proud of it, but we're mostly proud of some of the technological changes that we've made here. And I know you're going to get a sense of that tonight, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder by taking anything away from my friend Eric, who wants to talk to you about it. But we're really proud of the partnership we have with our suppliers and the people who have worked with us, people who have cared for the end product and cared for the vision and basically shared in the vision with us, trying to do something different. We're a small public media agency, but with what we consider is a very large purpose, and that is ensuring that there's educational French language content available in Ontario and across the country, and in fact the world now, in places where they don't have access to it. One last thing, to show to you perhaps one demonstration of how much demand there is for this. Last year we did a deal with Louisiana where we sell 14 hours a week of our programming produced here to LPB, Louisiana Public Broadcasting. That opened doors for us in the PBS family. Last November, we signed a deal with PBS World Learning Media, which is probably the largest educational media digital platform in the world. And as of 2017, they will be taking over 1,100 content hours from TFO produced here. So we're really proud of that. And thank you to the people in this room who have helped us make that happen. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Merci, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. Glenny, Mr. G to the O to the Mr. Glenn O'Farrell.
Okay, next. Next speech is about the Louvre.
Ooh, the love.
How it came to life, and we are happy to call the vice-president of Groupe Média TFO, Eric.
Mélanie.
I'm going to readjust a bit the microphone. Hi, so my name is Eric Minoli, like they said. First, I would like to thank all our sponsors, which is, I will name all of them, which is Applied Electronics, Canon, CEV, DeGero, Epic Games that flew from Raleigh, North Carolina to visit us, FCI's, Grass Valley, Plana, Quadrangle, who built this facility, and Rocket, Ross, of course, SMPTE, Unity and Zero Density, who flew from Istanbul, Turkey, to be with us tonight. We started last year an R&D project to allow TFO to expand, to serve the audience better in the digital world. Mini TFO, so José's team, came to see me a few months back. The Mini brand was expanding, and they had like a real set with a house and a garden. And they say, yeah, but now we want to build a street and we want to build like a bakery. And I say, whoa, 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 calm down. Like the size of the studio you're going to see is quite small. So we had to find ideas to be able to allow the production to grow they wanted to grow. So we had we needed something to accommodate the creativity that they have in their mind. We decided to investigate virtual set. So we did some extended research in North America to see what was going on the market and what could apply to TFO. We didn't thought that what we saw could be applied to kids because it was not what we wanted to do, what we wanted to produce. So we say, okay, let's move into the 21st century. And what can we do to do what we want to do for the show? Then we decide to turn with gaming engine. So gaming engine, it's something that's used by the gaming industry like Epic Games and Ubisoft to develop like the game that you can play on your Xbox or PlayStation. So we did decide to look at that, and we turn their different options, and we did a proof of concept in May with a bunch of people that flew from all around the world. So we had people from Istanbul, from Zagreb, Croatia, from US, we had people from London, and we did that proof of concept in a weekend in our studio, and it worked. And we were so ecstatic about the results that we validated the proof of concept in May, and we start production in August, which always sometimes a challenge, but we were able to make it. And the best part of it is the gaming engine, Unreal, it's free. You just go on internet and just download it, and you can use it. So I would like to talk more about the technical side to introduce you to Cliff Lavallee. Cliff Lavallee is a facility manager at TFO. I have the easy part of a job. I wake up in the morning and say, Cliff, I have an idea, or we have an idea. This is the vision of TFO. And I talk to him and say, please make it happen.
Easier for him than me. So I'm a bit more scripted here, but I'll try to make it a little bit flow. As Eric mentioned, we discovered this virtual set technology based on gaming engine, but I was always a little bit skeptical about virtual sets because we were trying to make our production increase. We wanted to output more product, and I always felt that any moving parts that are added into the flow, anything that's added is always going to have more issues and slow down your day. Well, we were proved wrong because this gaming product has really held its own. It's strong, and we were able to increase productivity. We are basically producing about 10 segments of content, segments per shift in a day, and now we're up to about 30. So it's a pretty big increase on what we're outputting. So the ability of rendering this high quality 3D imaging in real time is pretty phenomenal. We think that all the effects in the compilation video that we saw while we were eating, it was all done in real time. There's no post-production involved, so everything's done in real time. So if we go to just look at the screens, we'll take the mushroom world as an example. So here we have basically a virtual set where the ability to zoom out virtually from an environment 1,000 times larger than our studio. And we are able to also not bring any of this to the edit suite. It's all kind of mind-blowing on its own right there live as you're doing it. The other thing we have is the action button. So in this shot here in the front, you can see there were some fireworks that landed. Well, that's an operator action, just makes the fireworks go. The other scene that we have is when the elves that are visiting our daycare set. So here you see there's small elves and full-size host, our MC of the night. Basically, the real-time particles in the windows gives you some reality within the virtual. It's all virtual, but it makes it look real in our set, and being able to resize the people. So the third example that I'd like to bring out, if we can get to that. Anytime. So here it's all about the real-time effects again. You can see there's some reflections of light on the legs and also some of the distortion effects on the legs. So it really, the 3D elements are affecting the subjects in real time in the studio. So that's pretty much the 3 elements I wanted to show for that. All this happening in real time. So it's easy for us to foresee going live with this product. We can go live to air with it. What makes this project special is the ideology behind it. We didn't use 100 engineers or 10 committees to build this. We basically have 6 guys that work together to run our day-to-day operation for our broadcast and work with some of the people in the crowd here, some of our friends that helped us out through the project, and built this into 6 months. So 6 months to put this all together and get it running. So that was the physical construction. So it's not only the technology we put in, the virtual set, but it's the control rooms, all the technology that's in there, and the build. And it's thanks to Glenn and Eric, who are visionaries, and when they go out on the edge and they make decisions to take a risk and really say, okay, let's try this, let's make it happen, it lends well to the type of environment we have. We want people to experiment. It's our laboratories now, so we want them to be able to just make that error and say, okay, we're still going in a good direction, even if we make some errors. So that's about all I have. I'd like to just thank, while they're here, and all these great people, the maintenance guys that work with me. I'd like to thank them for all their contribution on this. And Alfred, Sebastian, Ravi, Patrick, good job. And the other person that helped us out through all this was Tom Bradbury. So Tom came in as our engineer. So we don't have an engineer on site, so we brought Tom in, and he acted as also our project manager. And he did a great job. His years of experience in the field, he helped us out through all this and kept us in the right direction. So Tom is next to talk, so thanks, Tom.
Well, thank you very much, Cliff. I was brought into this project near the beginning of this year, and Cliff first described it to me as it's a control room build. It's kind of a conventional project. So I set to work doing some of the preliminary things, making some preliminary plans and looking at budgets and starting to work on an RFP for Ontario government rules. And as we're doing that, Eric came to me one day and he goes, "Tom, we need love." And I went, "Well, Eric, you're a handsome guy. We all need love." And he goes, No, you have to understand our concept." So the concept, and this is a really important part, I think, but the concept here is this idea, and excuse me because I won't say it correctly, but laboratory de universal du virtual, the virtual laboratory. And that's the concept that they have and the idea they have that's all about how do we do our production. It's this new creative idea. And so, as we talked about that, it became clear that this project was a little bit different. So we then sort of changed, I wouldn't say we changed our approach, but rather I understood the approach a lot more. And now we knew the kinds of things that we wanted to do and what we wanted to look for. So there's a couple of different parts to this project. I want to talk, first of all, a little bit about the production control rooms. You may have noticed that there's 2 production control rooms that we built. They are pretty well identical. They look a little bit different, but technically they're the same. The concept of the production control room, though, is one of simplicity. The whole idea was that we didn't want to have people that understood all of the nuts and bolts of every little button and what the switcher does and how to do that. We certainly need that, but we wanted to have people that could come in and we could simplify that operation. And so that was the first thing that we set out to look at. And now we felt that as we were simplifying operations, that probably means automation. So one of the first things that we did is we looked at the traditional sort of newsroom automations that you would find from people like Ross or Grass Valley, so Ignite and those kinds of products. And we evaluated them very carefully, but we realized, as Eric said earlier on, primarily children's programming is what we're doing. So a lot of the programs themselves are very short. A lot of the programs are very different. Even for a given children's program, what is done today could be very different tomorrow. So there isn't necessarily going to be scripts that we're going to follow and so forth. So we felt that we could not use the automation in that sort of traditional way. So taking that a little bit further, we decided that what we really needed to do was to automate some of the functionality rather than the whole system. So when I say that, what we're really talking about is taking great advantages of what you would traditionally call macros on the switchers and so forth. So how can we simplify these things and make it work better for us? The big answer for us turned out to be the Ross family of products. We ended up buying Ross switchers, Ross playout, Ross CG systems. And because we did that, they all talk to each other very nicely. And they all talk very nicely to the Ross dashboard system. And so what we were able to do was use dashboard, build a number of macros in dashboard that gave us the ability to have very simplified control for a lot of the standard production control room functionality. And by doing that, greatly simplified the job of the people that are in the control room. The original idea was, not to shorten down the number of people, but rather to make everybody's job simpler so that we could run it with 1 or 2 people. And we have gotten pretty good at being able to do that. That's what we've managed to do with the control room. We run with a minimum number of people, but we run with people that are able to be much more creative in what they're doing because they don't have to think about, what menu is on what page and where do I find it and how do I push that button and what's the sequence I've got to do. We've tried to program that as much as we could. So that was the whole concept of what we did with the control rooms. We did also bear in mind that from time to time, TFO is also required to do big productions. So the control room system itself is still built so that we can go to a full-up production in both control rooms if we need, with 14 or more people to control all of the traditional functionality. So that's all still in there, but we've left it all in place to give us the ability to work both ways. The second part of what we are working on is the virtual set system. Now, especially as Eric has explained to you, the virtual set is a little bit different in our application because in TFO's view, the virtual set was all about creativity. It wasn't necessarily a new way to do what they wanted to do, but rather it was a new way to allow them to be much more creative, to be more productive, and to put together the kind of shows that they wanted to do. The traditional virtual set that most of you are familiar with is the types of virtual sets that are used with news or sports. So you tend to have a very flat set that has a preset picture. I mean, if you can imagine, pick a local news show, Global News uses virtual sets, for example. So they have a very nice looking set, but it is pretty well fixed. It doesn't really change a lot. That was an interesting challenge for us because children's programming has all kinds of different things, and TFO had a vision of creativity that they wanted to take that a little bit further. So they set out to find something different. And as Eric was explaining to you, we ultimately ended up going to a gaming software system that allows us to have a lot more functionality and creativity in what we're doing. Now, before I talk any further about that, I want to take a couple of minutes and just talk quickly about virtual sets in themselves. So if you like, let's call it the virtual set primer. Virtual sets, as most of you are aware, are based on the idea of having a green screen. You would have some hosts in your studio. The hosts are going to be keyed on top of that green screen. There's going to be a background graphic that will be put in place. Assuming that your lighting is done right, your green screen is working well, and your keyer is set up right, then you have your host standing in front of whatever the set is. It's a pretty easy thing to do. What is complicated about it is, the quality of the graphics, the quality of the keyer, and so forth. A more involved virtual set takes that and moves it a little bit further, because what we would like to do is give that virtual set some motion and the ability to look like we've got camera movements and things like that. So in order to do that, what you want to do is start to measure what the cameras are doing in terms of movements, have that control your graphic. So now, even though your host is still standing in the middle of the set and he's still being keyed in the middle of the set, as the camera pans left or right, there's encoded data coming from the camera that's going to tell the graphics box to change the angle that you see the background graphics, and therefore it looks like it's flowing and moving. All right? This is the system that TFO is using. Here we have a very complicated system that allows us to control the virtual set engine that we have. Excuse me. As you look around the studio after we're finished here, you can have a look at the encoding systems that we use. So here at TFO, there are really 3 different encoding systems that are used for the cameras to detect their position, again, that's controlling how the graphics move. The first system is something called STYPE, which is a system of encoding that's built onto the jib. And the STYPE system is made specifically for jibs. It's a system that gives us data for all of the movements of the jib. It's also very interesting because it's a system that can be used to control the jib. Most of you that have jibs are familiar with the fact that many of the functionalities of the jib are motorized. STYPE takes advantage of that and allows you to actually memorize some of those motions, so an operator can actually teach STYPE how to do certain things, and we can make motions repeatable. So it's a sort of a double win-win for us to use STYPE in this application. Secondly, of course, there is encoding that comes from it that drives the virtual set. The second system that we have is a system that's called MoSys, and that's not like Moses, like Christmas, but it's MoSys. And MoSys is a system that is used to allow the studio cameras, and by theory a handheld camera or anything like that that's working in the studio, to be detected in terms of position. So what it uses is a small ultraviolet light source that's on top of the camera, and it looks for reflective stars that are posted all over the ceiling, and based on that a computer generates a map of the studio, and from that information the computer can figure out where the camera is in the studio within its sort of 3 dimensions, if you like. So that's the second technology we use for controlling our camera positions. And the third technology is a pretty simple one. It's just the encoders from the lenses themselves are fed into the system. So in this way, when we're doing things like zooming in the lens, the graphic gets closer or further away and so forth. So those kind of things. So just a very quick primer for you to help you understand a little bit about the virtual sets, sort of why it's complicated and where we've gone. The children's TV portion was kind of interesting because children's TV generally has not used virtual sets. And the main reason for that is that virtual sets require a lot of graphic work. They require a lot of time to set up, and a lot of children's television changes. It changes a lot. There's a lot of set changes. There's a lot of different things that are going on, and this is certainly what TFO wanted to do. So they realized very quickly that this is a new world, that this is something there's not many people doing, and TFO wanted to find sort of a better way to do this. So again, as Eric was describing to you earlier on, there was a process of going through and looking at, what they could see at NAB and searching the world. And ultimately, we issued a tender for a virtual set. We got responses back from pretty well all the major virtual set companies, and we got a response back from one company called Zero Density, who proposed a system that uses 3D gaming graphics. And this one was very interesting to us because the 3D gaming graphics allow us to do a number of things that really have never been done before, especially for the children's application that we had. Now, the nice thing about the graphics, and if you've noticed some of the screens that Cliff had up here earlier on, or if you're looking at the video that was up earlier, 3D gaming graphics allow us to do a couple of things that are really cool. And for me, I think the most interesting one is that you can have objects within your screen that are moving, that are doing things, and in fact can be programmed to do things. So I think everybody in this room has played a video game recently, looked at a video game recently, and if you think about the screens that you see on those video games, you always have your main character, that's you, the guy that's carrying the gun running down the road, but there's all kinds of stuff that's going on in the background of the image, right? And that's what 3D gaming buys you. Is it has a lot of intelligence. It has intelligence that can be imparted on the objects that are within the video. So you can do very cool things. As Eric was also explaining, we deal with the Epic Games website. So you can go to it's called the Unreal Marketplace. And the Unreal Marketplace is a really cool place because you can go there and you can play video games, or you can go there and build your own video game. And I think if you leave it posted up on the site for a while, if people want to play it or whatever, it's left up there. So it's kind of the way that it works. But you can also buy these environments. So if you wanted to make your own video game, you can buy the environment, load it to your own computer, do whatever you want to. But again, these environments in many cases are available for broadcast license. And the nice thing about them is that they are readily available. They're very easy. They can be downloaded in minutes. And for an operation like TFO, it allows us to do all kinds of cool things. Cliff was showing earlier on the mushroom scene. One of the things that was interesting about the mushroom scene is that that particular environment was loaded, a couple of hours before that presentation was done, because they needed something different, and somebody came up with this idea, and they said, okay, well, we can do this, and we could download that environment and bring it into our world. Now, this is not to say that the graphics world is going to be bought off the internet. Even for TFO, there's all kinds of graphic work that has to go on in the background to make a particular environment look the way we want, to adjust it, to change it, or whatever. But the nice thing about the gaming world is that it's very easy for TFO to go in and buy an element. So for instance, if you'd like a palm tree, you can go to the Unreal website and for $4 or $5 download a palm tree, and you can plug it into your background. So it's very cool in that way. Some of the other things that are very interesting about it is it gives you better 3D capabilities in terms of the plane that you're going to be able to put your hosts in and how your host interacts with the objects. All right, and one of the last things that you can do is that the objects themselves can have intelligence. So you could do something like, for instance, put a balloon in the background, and that balloon can move around. So in children's television, that's kind of a cool idea. You could also program that balloon so that it moves around, and after it bounces off of something 20 times, it would pop. You can also program that object so it can bounce off the host. So there's some cool things that you can do with it that are only limited now by the capabilities and the ideas that you have. All right, so this is the idea of what we've done, and this is why it was interesting for us to go down this road. Let me see, what else do we need to talk about here? Just carrying on and sort of finishing up, our system also is based entirely on a software system. The system is controlled by one operator that works in our control room. So it's a very simplistic system, yet it has very many capabilities. And Kuban from Zero Density is going to talk to you next, and he's going to explain and show you some of the technical capabilities of it and show you what we can do. I guess in closing, I'd just like to say that I spent a large portion of this year working here at TFO and working on this project. It certainly was a great learning experience for me. It was a great environment to work with. I'd like to thank TFO for the opportunity, and I'd like to thank all of the vendors that worked with us along the way. You people made it all work for us, and you're all out there, and you guys know who you all are. But thank you all very, very much. Now, is somebody coming back up to introduce Kuban, or am I doing it? I think I'm doing it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I may, from Zero Density, all the way from Istanbul.
I'm here to present you a new king method that we developed, and it's now being used here at TFO. It's the clean plate projection technique for real-time image-based king. I have never seen a real-time application before like this. I think it's the first in the world. I'm Kuban Altan. I'm head of research and development at Zero Density, and I will present this technique. What is image-based king? Basically, it's a fancy word for difference matting. In real world, when using bigger green and blue screen cycloramas, it's harder to achieve uniformity in the lighting. Of course, the image at the right is an exaggeration, but it is shot on purpose to illustrate the problem. Image-based keying works like this. If you have a clean plate of your green screen, you can use this method. Color-based keying. Everybody used color-based keying for a long time, but the thing is to pick a color or not to pick it. Image-based key gives you a different approach. The image on the left is a color-based key. I did it on Keylight. Its Keylight is an old keyer from 90s. It's basically a color difference keyer. And I keyed the image that I showed you. As you can see on the left, there is no shadow details extracted on the floor. Plus, there are some extra non-transparent areas on the walls. That's very normal because the cyclorama was not even. But with image-based key, you can extract all the shadows and you don't have any problems on the walls. In a book which explains professional digital compositing for visual effects, Lee Lanier told this like this: whereas color-based keyers base their matte extraction on a baseline color selected by the user, image-based keying compares pixel values. Let me compare color-based keying versus image-based keying. the color-based key will work like this. No matter which keying algorithm is being used, it is based on a single baseline color value, which is picked by the user. To compensate for the uniformity issues in the cyclorama, the user has to add some tolerances and softness values. This means clamping the matte signal. In the image-based key, any keying algorithm can be applied by comparing the values of the incoming video pixel by pixel to the clean plate image. Whatever keying algorithm is used, each pixel will have its own baseline color value. So there is no need to add tolerances for compensating cyclorama uniformity issues. But now comes the question. Clean plates for moving camera. For a static camera, it's okay. You can capture the clean plate easily. But for a moving camera, how to create it? We do projections. So since in a virtual studio environment, we have camera tracking information available, we use this information to project our clean plates onto the cyclorama mesh and render a clean plate for every frame. It's like, it's very similar to panoramic stitching of clean plates. What is needed for projections? Number one, we need to know our cyclorama geometry. Then we need to have tracking data for the camera. And we also need to have a precise lens calibration data in order to undistort and reproject the image with the captured field of view of the lens on top of the cyclorama geometry. Can it be applied in real-life productions? Because it sounds kind of complex. How practical is it? The workflow is like this. You capture the clean plates to cover the whole cyclorama, then render synthetic clean plate every frame using projected clean images, then do an image-based key every frame using the rendered clean plate. Let me compare you the cons and pros of image-based keying compared to color-based keying. The cons would be you have to capture a clean plate instead of picking one base key color. We might need to capture several images to cover a big cyclorama. If the lighting or camera settings changes, we might need to recapture the clean plates. But the pros are, can compensate for lighting uniformity issues without adding tolerance to the key. And this technique may allow more creative freedom for creating hard shadows on the cyclorama because you can extract even the shadows on the floor. Even the floor is brighter than the wall. The shadows will be the same value for a color-based keyer. The shadows on the ground will be the same color like on the wall. A color-based keyer cannot extract it. But an image-based keyer would know the floor is brighter, so it will pull the shadows without creating any alpha on the walls. How expensive is it to compute? It can be implemented using GPU shaders. It's the implementation running here. The projection algorithm can be applied using fragment shaders, or the projected images can be baked on the cyclorama geometry for further optimizations if you need it for more performance. Thanks. That was it.
Thank you, Kuban, for this explanation.
Yes, and now it's time to learn more about gaming in a broadcast world with the Vice President Business Affairs of Epic Games.
please welcome to Jay Wilbur.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Really a lot of gratitude for you joining us here and having me here. And wasn't that really cool? What they were just showing with zero densities. It's just amazing. We've seen it operating in the set, and it is just crazy cool. So what I want to do here is give you a little introduction to sort of who Epic is, where we came from, the philosophy of how we got to where our engine is, why we built it, what we do with it, and the crazy path that brings me here today, talking to folks in television and broadcast space, coming from the gaming space, and then just wrap it up with why some of this cool technology is really applicable to what you guys are doing, and how we like to think about it, and hopefully you'll be thinking about it as well. So Epic in our early days, we started in 1991, 25 years ago. Tim Sweeney, our fearless leader, building games in his basement by himself is like those old Silicon Valley stories. It just happened to happen in Rockville, Maryland instead. He would take these games, split it into thirds, give a third of it away for free, and tell you if you want the other 2/3, then send me a check for $25. A lot of people did that. And from that, he built a company, bootstrapped Epic Games from there. And we started building more complex games, continuing to reinvest in the business. Excuse me. And our philosophy around developing games is basically that of rapid iteration. Fail fast, fail often, fail cheaply. Find out what success is, get those success threads as fast as you can, then amplify those as hard as you can. We're a small team. Epic has traditionally been a small shop. Back in the early days, we were putting out games with 10 people and competing against shops that had 100. One of our products, for example, Gears of War, some of you guys may remember that, the last console cycle, we shipped Gears of War with an average team of about 60 people. And that compares to a game like Call of Duty, par on quality. They had over 300. And we got to do that because of the tools that we created. Again, rapid iteration, fail fast, fail often, fail cheaply. So, fast forward, time moves on. Moore's Law is in play. We know where hardware is going. We continue to improve the tech. And about 2012, we released Unreal Engine 4. It's got unprecedented real-time graphics capabilities or rendering capabilities. We've improved the tool set to the point where it's really easy for folks to make games. I guess in 2014, we made it available for free. It was a really cool call. And going back to what somebody else had said earlier, he's right. It's for use in media and entertainment. It carries no charge whatsoever. You can grab it at www.unrealengine.com, sign up for an account, download it, go to town. Epic does get a little bit of marketing benefit out of it. I mean, we've got some bills to pay. I've got a wife with habits. But if you want to check it out, check it out. But the viral pickup on that was just nuts. And I mean nuts with a capital nuts. It was, I mean, it almost, within months, we went from several 100,000 users to several million users. And it was great fun. And what we found was a lot of these users were outside of gaming. I mean, we knew that it had implications outside of gaming, especially in the media and entertainment stuff, but we were finding car companies are coming after it. We're finding architectural and construction firms. We're finding aerospace. And we're finding a lot of folks in media and entertainment, far more than we ever imagined. We're super excited about it. And so we embrace and we start talking to these folks. What do you need? How can we do? What can we do to improve? How we go about making this thing better? And then we see Unreal Engine 4 being used in some traditional linear products. A lot of visual effects houses are using it. We see it used in the traditional side, mostly for previs. But we do have a lot of like short or 15-minute, 30-minute kid animation being developed using Unreal Engine 4. And of course, the sort of stuff that TFO is doing in broadcast. We're seeing that. And I'm happy to say that, that I believe TFO is the very first company to use a technology like this and put pixels on people's screens. So trailblazing, that's like, that kicked ass. Congratulations. You know, sort of going back to the beginning, you know, why think about using a game engine? It's this crazy disruptive technology that's coming onto the scene. You know, you go back, rapid iteration. Again, fail fast, fail often, fail cheaply. I mean, we have literally, that's like emboldened on the wall. It's so critical to success. In your space, you lower set development. I mean, the cost of bringing in somebody with a hammer and nails and wood just kind of evaporates. I mean, there are costs to putting the production together. You have to hire a different crew to do different things. But the benefit to that is none of that goes to waste. If you're making doorknobs and doors and podiums and video stands, whatever, all that goes into a library. You all get to reuse that. Anytime you think about, hey, we got a set that needs this or needs that, you just reach into the library, pull it out. It's already been done. You don't have to make it again. It allows for rapid changes on screen, on set, excuse me. So let's imagine you've got a set, I don't know, a fantasy set with a castle or something, and the director comes in and looks at it and goes, we need more trees right there. Turns around, comes back, there they are, done. Trees done. They're just waking in the wind, little leaves are blowing off them, anything you want. You know, it just happened like in a matter of seconds. And the other side of it, another thing to think about is the interactive approach to it. I mean, because when all your assets are in a game engine, the distance between your linear or your broadcast product and an interactive product goes to that. I mean, there's still work to be done, but the distance between the two gets very, very short. And that opens up a lot of really cool possibilities. Possibilities where you use things like voice recognition, where your characters can be on this screen. And a lot of kids get a lot of, I mean, I have a young 14-year-old daughter, and it's probably 80% this. She's looking at this, those characters can talk back to her. You know, and they can recognize things because of where voice recognition is going. Or do fun stuff, like if my daughter sneezes, the character says Gesundheit. All that stuff is possible. So as you think about where we're going in the world today, how game engines might fit in, you know, think about those things. We're going into interesting, fun places, and it's only going to get more fun and more cool from here. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. I'm pretty excited anyways. I don't know if you guys are all excited. I'm pretty excited to work here right now. So we had great speeches. The food was pretty good. And the evening is pretty great, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's actually getting better.
It's getting better?
Yeah, yes. It's almost time to discover the love.
Ooh, the Louvre. Le Louvre.
The Louvre.
Comme un poisson en surface latérale. Je fais des bulles, mais tout d'or plus calme. Au niveau de la mer, se tendait la ligne de la mort. Bada, 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 bada. Bada, 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 bada. Était-ce un rêve, mais là parmi les cieux, j'ai vu le bout du doigt de la main de Dieu. Les graines et pluies au flocon said